Are you ready with the video? Anytime? Okay. Good. So, good evening. My name is Nancy Marr, and I am a director of voter service for the League of Women Voters. And tonight, the League is pleased to be working with the RPV Council of Homeowners Association and the Palos Verdes Chamber of Commerce in presenting this event. All three groups are nonpartisan organizations. We do take stands on issues, but we do not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. Now I'd like to give an opportunity for someone from each organization to say a few words. Jack, would you like to come up? This is Jack Harris from the Council of Homeowners Association.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. One real quick, Council of Homeowners Association. How many of you all belong to a homeowners association? Show of hands, okay. For those of you who don't, start one. Start one in your neighborhood. And what it is, one member of your homeowners association can come to the Council of Homeowners Associations. In our case, it's all the homeowners associations in Rancho Palos Verdes come to be represented. You know, we're here as part of representative democracy, and it starts at the ground floor level. And that's critically important in neighborhoods. If you don't have a homeowners association, you don't really have a voice out there to talk to people. And when something goes wrong, you have speeders, you have crime, you have roads going bad, something, it's too late to try to put a homeowners association together from scratch. So if you don't have one, give it to your neighbors. You can talk to us afterward, form that homeowners association, and we'd like to have you represented for the Council of Homeowners Association. Okay.
Oh, wait, one more thing. You can also be an individual member at large.
You can also be an individual member at large, but we'd like you to form your own homeowners association. Okay.
Thank you. And now Eileen Hupp from Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Nancy. Good evening. My name is Eileen Hupp. I'm the president and CEO of the Palos Verdes Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. And I just want to say we are really honored to be partnering with the League of Women Voters and the Council of Homeowners Associations in bringing this forum to the community as a community service. At the Chamber of Commerce, we are in the business of a thriving community. And one of the drivers of a thriving community, of course, is a sound and well-run system of public education. And that's why we are here tonight. One of the programs that the Chamber of Commerce is particularly proud of, where we do partner with local students and our schools, is our highly acclaimed Young Entrepreneurs Program. This is a program for 6th through 12th grade students where we actually help them launch a business or a nonprofit organization. There's some information outside as you leave, and you can find it on the website. We are currently taking applications for 6th through 12th grade students for that. And so finally, I just want to give a shout out and a thank you to these 4 incredible people who have stepped forward to run for our school board. As you all know, that is a huge commitment of time and energy just to run, so thank you for caring about our community that much to step forward. And then also a huge thank you to all of you for caring enough to spending part of your evening with us and becoming informed citizens and informed voters. So thank you, Nancy.
I'd like to introduce our candidates. They drew lots for order, so that's how they got assigned. Dr. Jeannie Hahn in number 1 spot, Matthew Brock, Rick Phillips, and Megan Crawford. Okay, I have a couple of things to say about the format for tonight. And first, I did forget to say that I will be the moderator. I was not the original moderator, but the moderator became ill. And so I'm stepping in her place, and I hope I don't get it too mixed up. So some of the items, first of all, each candidate has 2 minutes for an opening statement and 1 minute for a closing statement, and 1.5 minutes to answer a question. So each of them has 1.5 minutes per question. All the candidates need to be able to answer the question. So we are only accepting questions that are answerable by all the candidates. They have, all audience questions are submitted in writing, and the ladies are going around with their cards and pencils, so you can ask questions at any time. And they're submitted here, where 2 people are going through them, and already we've gotten about 5 duplicate questions, not surprised. So they're looking for duplicates and also for questions that are statements rather than questions. That happens too. So these are my goals for the evening. I want this to be a discussion of issues and not personalities. This will take the cooperation of all of us, both the candidates and the audience. Audience, from you, I expect you to respect these people who are running for office. In today's political climate, it takes courage, as Eileen said. We will treat all candidates with grace and decorum. Please hold your applause, support, or opposition during the event. Time is short, so we want to hear what they have to say. Candidates, from you, I want you to answer each question as though, as you would to solve the issue being raised. I don't want to hear what you think your opponent has done or may do. Your opponents can speak for themselves. This is not a debate. It is not a town hall. It is a forum where your ideas are shared with the audience. So I ask for courtesy and comments and responses tonight from both the speakers and the audience, and I will interrupt any comments that do not follow this standard. So now we can get started. We'll start with the opening statement from each of the candidates, and it will begin with Jeannie.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jeannie Hahn. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have a PhD in sociology, marriage family therapy, and I hold 2 master's degrees. I have spent over a decade as a mental health therapist. My specialty is working with children, teens, and their families. I've often dealt with anxiety and depression among children and family issues. I have an in-depth knowledge and experience in how academic stressors and social issues can impact a student and their families. As a therapist, it is important to realize that even if we are rated the #1 school district in the world, but we have a high rate of suicide attempts, anxiety and depression and cutting, we are a failure as a school district. My expertise as a therapist brings a unique and needed skill set to the school board. I have an 8th grader at Ridgecrest and an 11th grader at Penn. Having children in the district helps me have firsthand knowledge of what's happening in the schools, and they are very good at telling me things. Because I have children in the district, I have been involved in our school community for 12 years as a member of the PTA Executive School Board, School Site Council, Booster Club, Cotillion Board, and I'm a mentor now for the STEM robotics team at Penn. I led the charge of switching to safer, non-toxic cleaning products in the classroom and buildings. When I was leading the charge, I collaborated with the district and parents to help bring about this change. The primary goal was to reduce harmful chemicals that were making children sick. I was able to work with the district to implement the program within budget constraints. I know that improvements and change can be made within budget constraints because I did it. I chaired the air conditioning committee at Ridgecrest, which led to electrical upgrade this year, which was about a 3-year process. For many years, the school was told that the children would have to live with classroom temperatures up to 90 degrees, but I, with like-minded parents, would not accept this answer. I'm a problem solver, solution focused, and won't stop until there's change that benefits the students, and action speaks louder than words.
And I will remind people to turn their cell phones to silence.
Except for the
Does
timer.
that stop?
Okay,
Is that the timer? Okay, I was confused.
Timer, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I was confused because I was waiting for the sign, but then I heard that. So, can I finish my last sentence?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. The district needs people who have vision of a better and innovative school district. I have the vision, work ethic, and imagination to bring about real change in our school district. Actions speak louder than words. Thank you.
Hey, Matthew.
Hi, thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Matthew Brock. I'm running for school board. I have 2 children in the district. I have a son at Penn and a daughter at PVIS. I also have been involved in the PTA. And a lot of what we talked about the last forum was kind of who we are as people. And tonight, I really hope we start to focus on what the issues are facing our district. We need to look at financials. Our financial situation is in a crisis. We are heading towards insolvency. And if we don't address it now, we're going to have big problems in the future. The last thing we want is for the state to come in and take over our district. And that is a real possibility if we don't get our house in order. We have students who, as Jeannie mentioned, are suicidal or depressed. We have issues with campus safety. We have issues with bullying. These are all issues that are far more important than who I am. What you need to ask is who is going to be your board? Who's going to have the curiosity to ask questions, the courage to stand up for what's right, and the commitment to see it through. And I hope that you see that with the candidates on the board, some of that exists in all of us. And I ask you to take a look and see who you think will bring that to the board. Thank you.
Yes.
I want to thank the RPV Council of Homeowners, the Palos Verdes Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, and the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's candidate forum, and you all for not going to watch the Dodgers, so the voters can make an informed decision when they cast their ballot for school board. My wife Allison and I have lived in this community for over 20 years and have consistently donated our time and dollars to our schools and community. Allison was heavily involved with the PTA and booster clubs. I spent 9 years as a PDF trustee. For our contributions to the schools, Allison and I received the PTA's highest service award, the Golden Oak. Since semi-retiring in 2013, I've devoted even more time to the community, including the Athletic Booster Club, Land Conservancy, PVE Traffic Safety Committee, and currently serve as a school board member. I've also served on and advised for-profit boards. My hands-on board experience separates me from the other candidates. One of the main areas that I focused on since joining the board is bringing my business and financial expertise to bear on addressing the issues in a $125 million enterprise. I started my career in the local aerospace industry over 30 years ago with Hughes and TRW after graduating from Caltech. I also have an MBA in finance from UCLA, which along with my investment banking and small business CEO experience gives me the skill set to understand the myriad of business issues that the district faces and the board deals with, including employment, negotiations, contracting, litigation, and many others. I'm proud to say that since joining the board, I've been able to utilize my expertise in helping to get our financial house in order. We're not headed towards insolvency after years of budgetary challenges. A key reason why I'm so passionate about education and academic excellence is that I firmly believe that my education was key to my postgraduate success. I'm proud to say that my two sons, who are TK to 12 graduates of the district, also received an outstanding education that has benefited them greatly. I want to make sure that the future students in this community also receive a great education and learn the coping skills necessary to deal with everyday stressors, so they too can lead successful and productive lives. In closing, I ask you to consider my proven track record in representing the best interests of all of our students, and please vote for Rick Phillips on November 6th.
Thank you, Rick. Megan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Crawford, and I'm running for a position on the Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School Board. I'm running because I want to make a difference in my community. I'm a lifelong resident of Palos Verdes, a recent homeowner as well, and so I really want to give back to the community that gave me so much. I went to Rancho Vista Elementary School, Marilyn Middle School, and Palos Verdes Peninsula High School, and I also have some of my best friends today that went to Dapple Gray and Palos Verdes High School. With the high quality of education that I received here, I went to Marymount California University on the Hill and got an AA degree, and then transferred to UCLA for my bachelor's degree. After that, I decided to go into teaching, and I went to Pepperdine University and got my master's of education and also my multiple subject teaching credential. During my time with that, I was lucky enough and grateful enough to volunteer and student teach at Soleado Elementary with Carrie Ellis, a 5th grade teacher, who was actually named one of the PB Teachers of the Year. Now I'm actually attending USC, where I'm working towards my Master's of Public Administration. I want to make sure that students in the community have as great a schools or better as when I attended. As a former student in the district and now a 6th grade math and science teacher, I think it is essential that I'm on the board because I have a unique perspective that is needed. I have that education experience, that curriculum expertise that once again is needed. We need one person on the board with that background, and that would be me. As a teacher, I advocate for students and help them daily, and as a board member, I would do the same. Any decisions that I make put students first. I also think that it is important to encourage younger members of our generation to continue to give back to their community And I think that my youth is an asset because I have high energy, I'm passionate, and I have the time to give back. I don't have kids in the district. That actually gives me more time and energy to be able to put into this and learn. And hopefully when I have kids in the future, I would love for them to go to this great school. Thank you.
Thank you. As we take the questions now, we're going to keep rotating who is the first to speak. So the first to speak this time is going to be Matthew. Okay. What main concern prompted you to run for the board?
It was the calendar. It was the school calendar. And we found out in April that they were moving the school calendar up until a week earlier in the summer. And the problem was a lot of parents had already booked their vacations. And the district's response to that via the superintendent was essentially, so we missed the first few days of school. I'm looking at a school who's struggling for money, and that's 3 days of ADA, average daily attendance. That's money that we're losing for each one of those students not in the seat. It's also when the teachers are doing their rules and their patterns. The schools are set up to welcome them for that first day. Over at PVIS, they have the web program. There's programs to get students involved and to get them to be a part of their schools and to feel comfortable. And the district, via the superintendent, didn't seem to care. So, like everybody else, I went to Facebook, and this is terrible, I hate this. And somebody said, well, if you don't like it, why don't you vote him out? And so I thought about it, and I thought about what I could offer with my background in safety, and small business, the PTA, my relationship with the parents, to see what they're involved in, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try.
Thank you. And now the same question to Rick.
I get to make a request that we get the 15-second paddle back.
You do want.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Oh, do I get to go over that? Since we're starting?
We have paddles that say 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, stop. So they want the 15-second one back. All right.
Just because we're used to it.
Okay.
Thanks. So, well, like Matt, there was an event that caused me to decide to throw my hat in the ring in February when I was appointed to the school board, and that was the recommendation fiasco that occurred last year. What happened last year were the seniors in our district got thrown in the middle of a battle between adults was just wrong. And I decided that, I had a lot of background in negotiations, and that I could, contribute to getting better solutions to problems like that so that they don't devolve into situations that put the students in the breach in the middle of adult problems. So that's really what precipitated it. And then in looking at the board, if you look at the makeup of the board, there really had not been somebody with a real set of financial and business skills on the board since Larry Van Voss left the board. He left the board in 2015. And so I thought that I could fulfill that role on the board and bring my skill set to bear because it was lacking in the board. And then when you look at the calendar vote, for example, I actually voted against the calendar for 1 year. And my solution, which was that we agree with the teachers, and implement the Thanksgiving off, the later start for the school year, but we delay it for a year so that we have 1 year of the same calendar, and then 2 years locked in for an earlier start and Thanksgiving off. That was a great solution. If we would have a calendar locked in today, nobody would be thinking about what's the calendar for next year because we would have adopted a 3-year calendar at that point.
Thank you. Megan.
For me, I want to run and I want to make a difference because I want to give back to the community that gave so much to me. Like I said, I think that I'm successful in my life because of the high quality of education that I received in PD schools. And I also was looking at the board and I thought it was important to bring diversity. As someone who is a current teacher in a neighboring district, I bring a diverse background that is needed. If I'm not elected, there will be no one on the board that has that education and curriculum experience. Last time I checked, this is called the Board of Education, and so we should have someone with an education background, I think. And so that would be me. I don't think that there should be 5 teachers on the board, just like I don't think there should be 5 of anyone. And so I hope to bring that diversity as a teacher, diversity as a former student, my age, also my MPA program. I'm learning how to evaluate situations and look at all stakeholders that are affected with each decision. And with 2 of our longest standing board members stepping down, including Anthony Coates, who kind of had that education background, I think it's important that we bring that education and curriculum experience again, and that's what I would bring, that diversity of expertise that is desperately needed.
Thank you. Jeannie?
This is a very personal story for me. My daughter has a chronic illness, and last year the school district treated us very poorly. They told us that because of her illness, they were going to send us to a truancy board, and at that junction, we got legal advice that told us we needed to pull out. I was treated very poorly by the school board, and I didn't want that to happen to any other, not the school board, sorry. I was treated very poorly by the school district. I did not want that to happen to any other child. And that's when that propelled me to run, because when I pulled it out of school and I had to homeschool her for 2 months, and then she's back in school right now, but I had to go through such a process. And I want you to know that I called the Department of Education, and I talked to them, and they said, I can't believe they're doing that with a child who has a 504, who has a doctor's note. That should not happen, but it did happen. I don't want it to happen to any other family in this district. And that's what made me want to run, because I'm always kids first, and that should not happen to any child or any family. There's more to the story, but I only have a minute and a half, so I can't tell more, but there were so many tears that my family shed. For the longest time, we thought the school district was our friend and they would protect us, and they did not. That's why I'm running, for the other kids, so it doesn't happen to anyone else.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to question 2. In the past 2 years, what have you done to educate yourself about the district? Have you visited sites, reviewed the budget, served on PTA, PEF, or other committees? And we're going to start with Rick.
Somewhere there's a switch. I joined the board. So I think I've gotten, I got an MPA you're working on. I don't know. I got some kind of degree in the PV school district and its inner workings. I have been to absolutely every site in this district, including Mela, Vela, Sunrise, and TTI, which are frequently neglected by other people when they talk about the sites in the school district. The first district site that I went to once I was on the board was RDM, also a site that is neglected. And at every site, I don't do a flyby of 10 minutes, I spend 2 hours. I spend 1 hour with the principal, getting to know the principal and what they see as the issues at their site, and another hour basically walking through virtually every classroom at the site, so I get a real sense of it. The budget documents are large. I think that as anybody that's watched any of the board meetings would say, I'm probably the board member that has the best understanding of all the budget documents and how they somehow work together, which can be very confusing. In addition, it's vast. I mean, the things that you have to deal with. Not only do you deal with the budget, but you're also dealing with contracts. I think try to improve the contracting procedure as well, and we're going to talk about one of those issues tomorrow with the board on conflict of interest procedures, and also dealing with litigation. So I mean, I think I've immersed myself in the district over the last 2 years.
Thank you. Megan.
I've been going to board meetings pretty frequently over at least the past year, talking to current board members, former board members about what they think their concerns are, and also I've been talking to a lot of teachers too. I did student teach at Soleado Elementary a few years ago, and so I've been in contact with some of those teachers there to kind of see how the curriculum implementation is going and what concerns they have. I think that something as a teacher is I could bring that background and kind of be a mediator. I think over the past few years, there's been a lot of resentment, I think, on both sides and a lot of tension. And so as a teacher, I would kind of be a mediator so that I could listen to the teachers. I think what they most want is to be heard and be listened to. And so I've been talking to some of them at Soliato and other teachers too, and also look at our finances and see what we can actually do. And if elected as a board member, I'm really excited to continue to give back to my community, volunteer as a board member, and keep learning about our schools. As a teacher, I'm a lifelong learner, and there's always things that we have to learn. But that's what I'm excited is looking towards the future and continuing to give back.
Thank you. Jeannie?
Well, what haven't I done? I've sat on so many committees. I've been the 4th VP, which is safety on the PTA board. I've been the 7th VP, which is the legislative rep. I've been the 3rd VP, which is the education rep. I have done so much. I've been room mom for like 9 years, which basically means I actually got 2 college degrees, but I was the room mom. I also did assembly, talent show. I've done so much. I've also sat on site councils, as I said before. I've been to Capitol Convoy, which is when you go up and talk to the senators, assemblymen. And I have to tell you, honestly, I learned a lot about our government and what they feel. What I've done to get ready is I have studied the budget. I've looked at the school. I've looked at how the school functions, LCAP, everything. And one thing I read, but also I like to do research. So I've read other sources. And then I've also asked experts. If I have a question and I can't find it or I don't understand it, I call up somebody who I feel is an expert and I discuss it with them. And I think that's really important, is to have that dialogue with somebody and get that input. So when decisions are made, it's a decision that's made with expertise from other people. I don't know everything, and I think the first thing you have to realize is when you need help to ask for it, and we need community input from parents and from teachers and staff to make important decisions.
Thank you.
This is a great question. I mean, experience really is where, you know, the talk hits the walk, and what you have done makes a difference. I mean, sure, I can want to do things tomorrow, but what I did yesterday is what makes me who I am. So I was on the PTA, and I was 2 years on the PTA. I served also on their budget committee, and during that process, I actually had to go through, and we were expecting our attendance to be down. So imagine going through a PTA budget, which is already pretty lean, and directing a 10% cut. And we were able to make it. You know, some of the other things I've done at the school is, as I mentioned before, we had a traffic and safety issue, which is now coming up again, where the superintendent is asking the cities now to fund our safety and traffic officers. Well, Montmagny didn't have one, and we couldn't afford to buy one. The district didn't want to help us. So I grabbed a vest in morning and afternoon, and I sat there. I actually stood there waving the cars through and making sure that everybody stayed safe. And it was a great opportunity to see the kids, to watch their smiles, to say good morning to them every day and have them say good morning back. I also had visited all 16 schools. I did not get to Mila, Vila, and all the others, but I did go to SCROC. SCROC is a wonderful program that we have, the Southern California Regional Occupation Center. And finally, this is kind of a secret, so don't tell anybody, but I am Monty the Eagle. I dressed up as Monty the Eagle.
Now everybody knows.
This is a secret. Turn the camera off.
Okay, our third question. What positive changes or trends do you feel the current board has implemented, and what would you like to see continued? And this begins with Megan.
I think that one positive trend and something that is really important is the hiring of our new superintendent. I think that he's a great choice. I've met him quite a few times. He's from a very high-performing district as well, and so I'm really excited to hopefully work with him and implement the goals that he has set forth for the district. So I think that's one positive thing that the board has done, and I hope that that continues. I think that also some things that they've done positive are looking at school safety This year, they started the Run, Hide, Fight program, which is basically instead of locking or always locking classrooms down, now students have Run, Hide, Fight. We've been doing that for a few years in Redondo, and so I think that that kind of starts with that starts the conversation with making student safety a priority. So those are some things that I think that they've done great, and there's always room to improve. They are looking at the next generation science standards. There's not a curriculum implementation yet, but on the board, that's something that I'd like to look into after we finish our adoption of ELA. That needs to be a priority. Science is a priority, and that's something that I'd like to continue to work on if elected to the board.
Thank you. Jeannie?
I also feel that we did a good job picking the superintendent, and I've met him several times, and I think he has our goals and the true interests of our school just at his heart. As a marriage and family therapist, I think mental health is super important in our district. I've heard over and over again from parents who have said that they're worried about their child because of anxiety and stress and depression we're seeing. As you know, with the brain, if you are depressed for a long time or anxiety, the chemistry in your brain changes. And we need to make sure that we have things in place like this stop that. One of the things is that the district has done is hire more CASI counselors at the high school and each level, which has addressed that issue. We also have started implementing a pilot program called Mind Up and Second Step, which is a mindfulness and teaching about the brain, which I think is wonderful to have in our school district. And I actually think that this year balancing the budget was really good. I think it shows that we can do it again, and it shows that with hard work and rolling up our sleeve, it's doable. And if we just put into the hard work, and we just have the right people who's willing to do the work and the research. And also, I'm glad that we're looking at safety. I've been to all 4 safety meetings at each high school that the district ran, and I got to meet with all the parents, and I got to hear what they thought was important. And I think that's really important to listen to the parents and to have the district have those meetings and to tell the parents what is happening with Run, Hide, Fight, but also to get parent input.
Thank you.
I have to agree with my fellow candidates that the mental health direction the district has taken is substantial, and it will take some time before we see it pay off. But as Jeannie said, the CASI program is wonderful. We have Second Step. We have positive behavior, intervention, and support. And these are all programs that are designed to help with social-emotional learning of students, to handle difficult situations, whether they are an aggressor or the bullied, to be able to decompress. Now, PV High has a wonderful program, it's a 0 period, where they practice mindfulness. Penn has a special room where they can go in. There's a couch, and there's a very nice lady who sits there and schedules them to see the, and I wish I remembered her name because she is so sweet, but she is terrific. I mean, you walk in there and you feel relaxed, you feel comfortable, and it's important for our students to have that. So I think the shift in focus towards mental health is key. And it also ties into safety. You know, the district is finally looking at the Run, Hide, Fight. You know, it was 3 years ago when I started on the PTA, and I went to a 4th VP meeting, and we were talking about sheltering in place, and they said, we hide underneath the tables. It's like, we hide underneath the tables for an active shooter? Yeah, that's what we do. No, we don't run, we don't hide, we don't fight. No, you know, that's not what district has to do. So finally, I'm glad that the district has woken up and realized that Run, Hide, Fight is what we need to do.
Thank you. Rick?
Well, I'm glad everybody up here approves of the new superintendent. I helped pick him. And I do think we did an excellent job there. It wasn't always easy, you know, but we got through that process as a board. And one thing that, you know, I'm convinced of with the current board, and I think will be true of the next board, whichever of the 4 of us gets on it, is that the board will have the best interest of the students at heart. And always keep that in mind. I do think that we did a good job on the budget. It's the first time that's been in balance since 2012. We did adopt the Wonders ELA, and it is now being rolled out from K through 2. And on my site tours, that was one of the things that I was impressed to see, because it has a level of interactivity that really engaged the kids in the 1st grade classroom where I was observing it. And so it was really good to see that in action, and it was having a positive effect.
Also, I think we actually have a better working relationship with the union, that it's on a more positive tone. You don't see the same kind of rhetoric on either side that occurred last year, and I think that's a positive change. In terms of the wellness, we did double the CASI initiatives in terms of number of counselors at the high school level, and we filled the hole at the intermediate school. There really was no mental health resource there. As Matt mentioned, we also did implement the mindfulness course at PV High, and I think we made great strides in that area.
Thank you. Our fourth question is, have you had experience negotiating contracts? Just as unions, I assume this means working with unions, dealing with litigation. We'll start with Jeannie on that one.
Okay, I get all the hard questions first. This is the second time. I think you're in for me, but I'm not going to hold it against you. The question was, have you had, obviously I have not, but that does not make me someone who should not, that does not disqualify me or says anything about me. I think that is something that you learn to be when you're on board of education, and that's something you can learn. I think one of the things I bring is people skills. I have to say that when I meet people, they generally like me, and one of my campaign slogans is, I'm likable. And I think one of the things you have to do is to, when you negotiate and when you work with people, you have to have them like you, and you have to build that trust. And as a therapist, one of the skills that I have is the ability to listen to people and to understand what they're saying and reflect back to them what they're saying, because that's a very important part of negotiation, is to build that trust. And when we talk about, when Rick was talking about the teachers and the unions, that's really important to have, to be able to talk to the teachers and to talk to other people and say, hey, I like this person, I trust this person, I know this person is listening to me. And that's really the part of negotiating that's really part. It's not about saying, okay, you can only get this much or get this much. It's to build that relationship and to continue. Because you know what, it's not just this year that we have to negotiate with teachers union. We have many more years to come, and we need to build that relationship.
Thank you. Matthew.
No, I don't. As a high school coach, though, I had to deal with angry parents, and angry parents can make a union look like kitty cats. And but I don't have that experience. But what that means is I'll rely on the people around me. You know, as we're going through these negotiations, you have an actuarial, and to go to him and say, hey, what will this cost? What is this real cost going to be? You know, they're saying it's going to be this. We think it might be that. Where's the real cost? So when you don't have that experience, and even if you do have that experience, you need to listen to the people around you, and you need to take, just like I talked before about reaching out to the community. You know, we have a lot of great strengths to draw from the community. You draw strength from the people who can best answer those questions, and then you use your insight and your knowledge, and you try and adopt the best that you can.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, I have a ton of experience with negotiations and probably more experience than I'd like in terms of being on the periphery of litigation and advising clients about litigation. So in my second career, I like to say after I did aerospace, I was an investment banker, and that whole job is about negotiations. My job is to negotiate on behalf of my client to get him the best deal as compared to the person on the other side of the table. And I did that in a very constructive fashion. So my job is also to get the deal done. And that's one of the key things in remembering. When you're in a negotiation to get a deal done, you want to make sure the deal gets done and you just don't poison things so that it falls apart. So with the union, hey, you know, the teachers are our partners. They're not our enemy, right? They're our partners in this, and we have to have a collaborative type of negotiation process. I'm happy to say that the union did endorse me. And I'm proud, and I think that part of the reason I got their endorsement is because they respect me and I helped reestablish that relationship. As far as litigation, I also advise clients who potentially are facing litigation in terms of some of the financial aspects, and think about the various legal strategies that they can use to settle things, because I really hate litigation. And I spoke even at last board meeting from the table about how what I really want people in the district to do is to come to the district and try and work out their issues. I proposed an ombudsman to take lawyers out of the process and to have things settled in a more amicable fashion, because I really think we need to get litigation costs reduced.
Perfect timing. Okay, Megan.
So as a teacher, I deal with negotiations in my contract, but other people are doing it, not myself. But I think that as a teacher, that's something that I would bring, is being a good mediator and seeing both sides. I can see what the teachers want and need, whether that be smaller class sizes, salary increases, or benefits, but also seeing the other side, the financials, and what can we actually afford. I would also look to fellow board members who have dealt with negotiations before and get their advice, and that's something that I will definitely learn, but as a teacher, I think I'd be a good mediator. Litigation is something that is also really important and happens quite often in the district, especially with special ed. And so as a teacher, that's something that I would like to reduce litigation costs too. I think that we need to build relationships with families early on when students are starting school and when they go through the IEP process. It's important that we follow the laws regarding special ed, but also we need to make adjustments and modify and meet the needs of the individual students. That's why we have IEPs. I think that this building like this relationship with families early on and not over accommodating students and making sure that we're also putting them in the least restrictive environment, which is what the law states too. And building that relationship with families, like I said, can minimize our litigation and maximize our ability to serve all students. And the district, the PVFA endorsed me as well, so.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Matthew. If you had to reduce the school district's budget by 2 to 4%, how would you accomplish this?
I would task the superintendent, which is our responsibility, to look for areas at the district level that we may be redundant, that we have excess, that we are serving wants over needs, and to have him really take a look at the very top to see where we can save some money. And I think that if we look, we find that it's significant amounts. Also, as others pointed out, I would love to avoid litigation. We had, we spent $300,000 or more 2015-16 on special education litigation. Why? That is, my question is why? Why are we not able to address the needs of our students? Or as Rick said, to come to an amicable conclusion that we do not have to spend $300,000 on legal fees.
Thank you. Rick?
So reducing the school budget is always a tough task because there's no nice answer. So the first answer really is to make a nice answer, which is go find some more revenue, right? And so seriously, that reduces how much you have to cut. So if you have to cut 2 to 4 million, which is 2 to 4%, which is $4 to $10 million, versus how much more revenue can you get out? So maybe you can get $1 million from additional facilities rentals, maybe doing weddings, maybe doing film shoots, but coming up with something along those lines. Budget Advisory Committee is one of the key mechanisms that we've set up to advise the board in terms of how we might both raise revenues and cut expenses. And I look forward to the recommendations. They haven't given them to us yet. If you look at the budget, 15% of it is in non-personnel areas, things like maintenance and outside contracts and services. That's one of the areas that you look. You look at the administration cost. The administration is pretty lean in terms of the overall costs here. But as I've said before, we have some overtitled people in the central office, and we have to look at that. In addition, when you actually have done your cuts in terms of outside services, and you've done your cuts in the central office, then you basically want to protect the core academic programs, which is what we did in 2008, 2009, 2010, which was really tough. And you basically have to make your cuts on the co-curricular side so that you protect the key mission of the district, which is academics.
Thank you. Megan?
So I think it's going to be really important to listen to the Budget Advisory Committee. They've been doing a great job in giving some recommendations, or a few recommendations to the board recently about how to increase revenue and cut costs. 80% of our budget does go towards personnel. And so for me, if I had to cut the 2 to 4%, it would be as far away from the students as possible. We can look at administration, we can look at increasing revenue by increasing the number of students that we have. I do think that it is important though, if we are struggling with funds, that administrators should not be getting raises if teachers aren't getting raises. So that's something that is important to me. I have to listen to fellow colleagues who have more financial experience than myself, but I think that the Budget Advisory Committee is coming up with a lot of great ideas, but for me it'd be as far away from the students as possible. That's where I would make the cuts.
Thank you. Jeannie?
Well, one of the things we could do is cut admin costs. And if you do a comparative analysis between us and other school districts that have similar school sizes, that Palos Verdes School District is about $630 per student in admin costs. Carlsbad, which is similar number of population, and also has a similar number of our funds that are given to kids, they're only $588 per student. La Vigentas, which is Carlsbad, their cost per student for admin costs is $435. And if you do math, not Common Core math, I will teach you that if we could reduce it to $588 like Carlsbad, then we would save close to $500,000 in admin costs. If we could reduce it to $435 like Carlsbad, we would save $2 million almost on admin costs. And one of those things we can look, what is that school district doing differently than us? Can we get that cost down? And what does that look like for our school district? These two school districts are comparable to us by funding and also class size. We should look at that. Another thing that we talked about is also revenue streams. A couple of years ago, Dr. Austin talked about having an online school for our kids. Because, you know, last summer I wanted to do online school for my daughter. It cost $700 for a school in Kentucky. And I was like, oh my goodness, but I was ready to write that check. We can, with our PVPUSD brand name, look at what it would look like if we did that revenue stream. So not only should we start cutting from our budget or looking at how to trim it, but also alternate revenue streams. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, Rick is going to begin. As a percentage of general fund revenue, what level of reserves do you think the district should maintain for use during a recession, and how did you calculate that number?
16.6%. So actually, this is a question that I wanted to be within the scope of the BAC's charter. 16.6% is not arbitrary. It actually is 2 months of expenses. And if you look at other districts' policies, they basically say that a prudent reserve level is 2 months of expenses. So 16.6%. I've also advocated that in relatively good times that we essentially have a target surplus that we should be running so that we can build our reserves up to that 16.6% level. And that I'd like a recommendation from the BAC. You know, I have my own, sense that it should be probably, about 0.5% plus or minus 0.2%, right? In terms of what's the right level to fund that reserves back up. Right now, we're below that 16.6. We're running at 13 to 14%. So I do think that we should build the reserve level up. That is an issue. As I've said before, this is the first time we've been in a balanced budget since 2012. We're in negotiations with the teachers. No doubt there's going to have to be some amount of money that's used to solve that, and so we've got that challenge in order to figure out how to make that all work.
Thank you. Megan?
It's obviously important to have reserves. I know that we need at least 3% so that the state doesn't take over. I don't have a calculated answer for you. That's where I would defer to my board members like Rick, who have more experience, as well as our superintendent, who has a great finance background. So obviously reserves are important. We shouldn't be deficit spending. We do need to look at cutting costs and increasing revenue where we can, including adding students, adding programs to our district that attract more families here. But I think the most important thing is that we're spending our money wisely and putting our money where our priorities are. And people aren't going to vote for me because of my budget experience. I know that. and I'm not gonna act like I have a background that I don't. And that's why, like I said, I would defer to other colleagues who have that experience, as well as the superintendent who has that great background. You would vote for me because of my education and curriculum experience, again, that is needed. And I think that if we're putting our money where our priorities are, as a teacher and educator, that's where I can kind of give that background on where I think we can put our priorities there in programs.
Thank you. Jeannie?
I have to say that it's important to get expertise on this, and we have reserve, and since Rick's throughout that figure, I'm just going to piggyback on him. So, and I think that's important because when you're a board and you have to work together, it's important to listen to other people's opinions who have more expertise than you. And that's okay that I'm not as strong as budget, but I've been reading a lot about budget and reserves. But I also remember what it was like when we had furlough days. When my daughter was in elementary school, we had teachers and principals who had to take time off, and I never want to see that again. I want to make sure we're financially sound, that we have the reserve in case something happens, that we do not have to have furlough days, I'm sorry, it's very important to have reserves, but it's also important to realize that to have those reserves, we do have to make budget cuts, and we have to live within our means, and that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew?
Okay, 16.61%.
We like the number.
I got that number there. But first, unfortunately, we might have to go lower before we go higher. We have immediate needs the district needs to address. We have an outside company came in and identified about $3.2 million in immediate needs and repairs for our district. So unfortunately, we may have to dip lower into our reserve before, as others have said, we trim the fat of our budget, we increase revenue, and we start to grow it again. It's a kind of a double-edged sword. We can't just put our head in the sand and hope the problems go away on their own, because they won't. And so it's going to take some tough choices. It's going to make sure that every dollar that we spend is going where it belongs and where it can do the most good. So 16.61, Rick, I'm with you there. It might take us a few years to get it. Maybe, but it's something definitely that I will defer to your expertise that we need to get there.
Okay, the next question will begin with Megan. How would you address fundraising inequity among the individual schools?
So that's a concern that I've been hearing from a lot of people. And I don't necessarily think that there's a right answer, but I'll give my opinion. I think it's important to encourage parents to donate to PEF because that does go to all students at all school sites. So we should be encouraging parents to donate to our Ed Foundation. But also, I think we shouldn't be discouraging parents from donating to their individual school sites where their kids attend. We do need funds, and so if someone is able to donate that money to a school site, I think we should be gracious and receive that donation. I do know that a lot of the donations that parents have given, some things do need to be approved through the board. I also know in the past that some parents have given a donation and basically want it matched by the district, and so that's something to look at too. If it requires us too much to match and we can't do it, maybe there's something else that we can do with those funds, and parents could come together and agree with some sort of alternative compromise for that. But each school site is different. They each have their own character and needs, and so overall we should be encouraging parents to donate to the Ed Foundation, but also we shouldn't be discouraging parents from giving to their students or their children's own individual school sites.
Thank you. Jeannie?
This has been a problem in our school district for as long as I can remember, and I've been donating to our schools, and so I'm a parent that understands what it means to make donations. One of the things at the board meeting, the last board meeting they talked about was a gift tax, which is a tax where if you donate something, they're asking you to put a little bit more in, and that goes into a pool, and that pool is distributed to other schools. And I can tell you, I'm against that. I know that the parents at each school, when they fundraise for a specific cause, and they know the needs of their school. They know the needs of the school. And I think that's really important to understand. I think what we can do is one of the things we could do is talk about what other schools need. And if a parent from another school wants to donate, that's fine, to make that known. And another thing they talked about is PEF. PEF is fantastic. One of the things they do is they make sure all schools have the same things, safe school counselors, other things like that. And I think that's one way we could do that with the whole issue of being equality on the Hill.
Thank you, Matthew.
It's important to distinguish equality and equity, and a gift tax is what, it has been called at the board, and I am 100% against it. If you pass a gift tax, you will watch parental donations dry up. When parents donate to their schools, they're donating to their child. Our school system is diverse. We have 16 schools spread out over the entire peninsula, and every one of them has a unique identity. And the parents feel that it's their school, that the money that they do, the effort that they give is going into their school. Now, if you tell them that, you know what, that's great, thank you for that, but now we're gonna take that money and give it somewhere else, you're gonna watch that money go away. You're gonna watch the effort go away. And the last thing this district can afford is for the parents to start closing their checkbooks. We rely on them. Our district succeeds because of the parents and because of their contributions. And anything that we do that hinders that is a large error. Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
So I think the first task here is to understand how much inequity there is in terms of fundraising capacity at the sites. So that's one of the things that I've actually asked the district staff to do, is to determine on a site-by-site basis how much funds are raised by each of the sites, because we don't even understand how much of a problem exists. The first pass at that, we didn't get accurate data, so that's being redone by Keith and the staff. I do think that PEF is great, because PEF is a district-wide fundraising effort, and it basically funds programs and services. One of the reasons that there is kind of this inequity or issue at the various sites is PEF doesn't fund capital, and there is no PEF-like district-wide capital effort to fund. And so there's no source of district-wide donating capacity to fund capital improvements at the sites. And so that's something that maybe we could use to help it. One of the things that we've also talked about, I know the gift tax is something that's not very popular, but one other thing that we've talked about at the board is that when one site funds to raise for a thingamajig, that if another site doesn't have money for the thingamajig, that the district would pay for that, but that doesn't mean that the original site that had the fundraising capacity to raise for the thingamajig, gets something else in addition. So the district would essentially backfill with district money to help with the equity issue across the sites. So I do think it's an issue that we need to figure out a better method of addressing at the board, and I think we need the facts and data to understand it before we come up with a solution.
Thank you. For the next question, we're going to start with Jeannie. I picked the hardest one.
You and I are friends.
Our schools need to be safe. What would you do to increase safety and funding?
One of the things, of course, is mental health. When you read every single research about school safety, they talk about fences, they talk about cameras, but they always mention mental health. Because we need to identify students and help them out, and help them to understand what's going on. And so that's very important, mental health. And one of the things they've done in school that I really like is certain schools have what they call teams. They identify a student, and a team of teachers or counselors identify the student, and they work to try to get this kid connected. And I think that's really important. And so another thing I really like is, one of the parents mentioned this, but I also like the fact that right now the school has these films on the windows, and they're just, kind of black, you can see through. But a parent at Soliata talked about the different kind of films they could have. One is a film they could have done, and I wish the school district had done this one, is where if you punch the window, the film holds the glass so that you can't go through. Another thing is, I know this is wonderful idea, Kevlar shades. Those are one of the things that we have talked about. Though it is expensive, but I think it would have been nice to let the schools pick what kind of things they could do, instead of just telling the schools this is what we're going to pick.